in programming, as in life, we often need to make decisions based on more than a single factor. Nested if statements give us a way of doing this. So to investigate this idea, let's pretend that a gentleman named Fred has asked us to build him a program that will help him decide what to do in different circumstances. So this diagram represents our first pass at designing this program. And it includes at this point a simple if-else statement. If it is sunny, then we're going to recommend playing Frisbee. Otherwise, we're going to recommend that Fred watch something. And then our program will continue. Now, this also gives me an opportunity to talk about the notion of iterative design. Our first pass is pretty high level. And when we look at it a little closer, we might realize that watching something itself involves making more than one decision. We need to choose what to watch. And so we can iterate or pass through this process multiple times. So we may identify this idea of watching something and choose to drill down on it and do a little bit more thinking on our next iteration. So this diagram depicts a further exploration of the idea of watching something. And so this simple process has now been expanded into a more complex one in which we ask the question, hey, are you by yourself? And if you're by yourself, then Fred, we recommend that you secretly watch clips from America's Got Talent. He's got this favorite secret pastime he doesn't want people to know about, perhaps. And this is it. He likes to watch America's Got Talent. If he's not by himself, he's with his friends, then he's going to propose, we recommend he propose watching something with explosions in it, because that's the kind of thing his friends like to do. So this simple thing, watching something, has now been expanded into this more complex notion. So then we can reintegrate this into our design. Okay, so here we've done that. So now we see that there are multiple paths, more than just two, that we can follow through this process. If it is sunny, we're simply going to play Frisbee. But if it's not, then the else set of actions for our if-else statement has gotten more complicated. We're going to then make a determination based on whether or not you're by yourself, or whether the user, Fred in this case, is by himself, and proceed with a set of then and else actions accordingly. Now, in this case, we see that the decision appears to be being made immediately after, the second decision, appears to be being made immediately after the first decision. And that can happen. And when that happens, it's very clear that these paths are dependent on both of these tests. In order for me to watch a clip from, in order for us to recommend that Fred watch clips from America's Got Talent, it must not be sunny and he must be by himself. In order for us to propose watching something with explosions in it, it must not be sunny and he must not be by himself. Okay? So this is a way then of making decisions, if you will, based on multiple factors. Now, it's not necessary that the second decision, or the nested decision in this case, be immediately following the first decision. There might be some things that we need to do on this side of the initial if-else branch, regardless of whether or not you're by yourself. And that's the case here. If we think about it a little bit, we may realize that in order to make this decision, we need to know if the user is alone. And so we'll ask that here. Now, why are we asking if the user is alone here and not up here, for instance? Well, if it's sunny, then we're going to play Frisbee. We're going to go find somebody perhaps to play Frisbee. We're just saying in this case that if it is sunny, it doesn't really matter if he's alone. If the user, he or she, is alone, in this case, again, it's Fred, it doesn't matter if they're alone, we're going to play Frisbee. So we don't need to ask that question. So it makes sense that we ask it over here after we have determined that it is not sunny. Okay, so once we then have that information, we can make this decision concerning which of the two things we're going to recommend. Okay, so here is some pseudocode then that represents these ideas. So if it's sunny, play Frisbee. Else, find out if the user is alone. If they're by themselves, then suggest secretly watching clips from America's Got Talent. Otherwise, propose watching something with explosions. So again, this basic notion is known as a nested if, where we have one if, in this case an if-else, nested inside of one of the branches of another if-else. This could just as easily be nested inside of a simple if it was nested inside of the then side or the then branch of the statement. All right, let's look at this in the context of C++. Let's look at some example code that implements that procedure or that program. So I simply have one variable I'm going to work with here, which I'll use to record the user response. And right out of the gate, I ask, is it sunny? And if they say yes, then we celebrate and say, go play Frisbee. Otherwise, so this else is attached to this if. Otherwise, we will then ask, are you by yourself? Get their response. And if they say yes, then we recommend, hey, secretly watch. If I can scroll a little more smoothly here, secretly watch clips from America's Got Talent. Okay, then there's the else branch, and this is attached to this if, in which case we suggest watching something with explosions in it. Let's run this, make sure it works the way we expect. We're most interested right now in the situation in which it's not sunny, so that's what I'll focus on. Are you by yourself? Yes. Secretly watch clips from America's Got Talent. And is it sunny? No, it's not sunny. Are you by yourself? No. Fred's with his friends. Then we're going to suggest watching something with explosions in it, since that's what they prefer as a group. Okay, so that's the basic notion behind nesting if statements or if-else statements inside of if or if-else statements. And this can be used in much more complex combinations, but the principles stay the same. Thanks.